Hello, my name is Tristan Gold, and welcome to A Moment of Your Time. Joining me today is politician and Libertarian Party member Vermin Supreme. Vermin, thank you for joining me today.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for having me here today, Tristan. It's really nice to be here by digital means to New Jersey
Hey,
in the
woo!
house.
Now, I was interested in the whole idea behind hashtag in on the joke. I was wondering if you could tell me a bit about the transition on being taken more seriously during this political campaign specifically.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, of course, I've been running the satirical, humor-based, overall incredibly not serious campaign for close to 30 years. Since 1987 was my first farcical campaign. 92, I think it's generally recognized that I was claiming to be running for president, and started utilizing the New Hampshire primary process, the first in the nation primary, which has an inordinate amount of outsized media impact. And so I've discovered that it was very easy to go up there and hijack that essentially. And of course, that led with my serial intentional interactions with the other major party candidates, which was always good for some sort of a media bump, and like in interacting them in a non-serious, non-linear fashion, asking them the important questions about what are you going to do about the weather, or do you support mandatory toothbrushing? And I discovered that by using that particular tactic, I was generally able to elicit much more interesting and better answers. Bob Dole, when I asked him if he supported mandatory toothbrushing laws, he agreed, yes, but he said as long as it's locally controlled. So that was beautiful work, and it's great when they just don't miss a beat. When I asked Ron Paul if he supported the mandatory toothbrushing laws, he said yes, which was, of course, surprising but fun. And then I asked him if he support how we were going to pay for it, and he responded, "We will print up lots and lots of money," which was a very funny thing of him, playing on himself. And then when I asked him if he wanted to go back in time and kill baby Hitler, he demurely said that sounded risky, and his driver wisely drove off. When I asked John McCain about the mandatory toothbrushing law, he responded that his campaign staff, Lynn, had great experience hiding in people's bathroom late at night to make sure they brush their teeth. I had Lamar Alexander once admit that he did in fact have Elvis Presley imprisoned in a dungeon underneath the governor's mansion of Tennessee for heinous acts, and on and on. So I just found it so much more satisfying, and it obviously it developed quite a resonance with the public. Even years before I went viral in 2012, I had a serious uh, you know, hardcore national base audience that was mainly political geeks, political followers would know who I was, people who followed politics, the New Hampshire primary, and the media, of course. And because, I've often played to the media, recognizing that, and it did, in fact, take me many years to actually break through the editors. But I always knew that, playing to the media workers was a very important audience because uh, just because, I mean, obviously they have that power, and even if I didn't make it past the editors, I felt it was a worthwhile grooming them. And as a result of a lot of these inadvertent factors, I uh, garnered a fair amount of press and a fair amount of notoriety. And I reached this level, this stage where I had enough reach and enough, like as I say, notoriety and support across the political spectrum, across the country and the flat Earth, if you will. Um, that it was actually feasible for me to make an offer of my services as a candidate to the Libertarian Party. Now, I would never have considered doing such a thing on my own volition. It would have been much easier to just continue the complete satirical version of the parody of the campaign. But several libertarians saw the possibilities. They saw the potential, and they were visionaries in their own way, and they felt that a Vermin Supreme candidacy, Vermin Supreme being on the head of the national party ticket would be an amazing way to propel the party forward, attract many young voters and many young people, and spread this spread the message of liberty to places it had not been received. Specifically, the left leaning America, because I have incredible cachet there for my work at the protest rodeos over the years and such. Um, and they felt that I was of all the candidates on the slate, I was the most likely to be able to achieve 5%, based on my social media reach, and the very real possibility that it could have snowballed into a youth movement. There was that, and towards right up to, right before the nomination convention, I mean, you could really feel it. There was insane amount of momentum steamrolling in that direction, and most of it was from outside the party. A lot of the excitement and a lot of the uh, you know uh, people getting really jizzed about it they were ready for it. They were ready to jump into the LP, follow the Libertarian Party, and a lot of people would even necessarily agree with the platform. So it was at a point over a year and a half ago that Desiree Lindsay, my campaign manager, reached out and just sort of broached the subject, asked me if I was interested in running a more serious campaign. And I had to, talk about it, think about it, really consult with my wife, figure out what it actually meant in terms of the time commitment. And eventually, I just thought it seemed to be such a natural extension of what I had been doing, and it was essentially, once again, offering my services, not trolling the LP, but more so offering my services to be able to troll America on the behalf of the LP, and just really, I mean, the media would have been amazing. The blowback would have been crazy, but I was getting all sorts of hate during the campaign, so I was totally prepped and primed, and we were ready for responses of such on character assassinations and such. And yes, I agreed to do that, and it became a very different campaign for me, because we were indeed we had such a very specific goal, obtain the nomination, and so that entailed a number of different strategic considerations. And once again, I really, having never run on this level, was fully entrusting my campaign team and staff, who knew the lay of the land and were familiar with what it would take to make happen. I was very reliant on their good judgment and advice, and it became a year of where I raised more money in this one year for this 1 year campaign than I had ever spent on all of my other campaigns of 30 years combined. In previous years, a previous satirical campaign year, essentially the time commitment was a week or two up in the New Hampshire primary, followed up by a week at each of the national conventions, the R and the Democrats, and then maybe the inauguration. And that, so it was like an investment of 1 month, and that would cost me maybe $3,000 max, $1,000 for to get on the ballot in New Hampshire, and the rest would be for bumper stickers and travel. Um, so it was very frugal, but obviously the impact, the bang for the buck I got was quite incredible, and every year sort of grew and built upon the last election cycle, and where I was at that point. And so this year of running for the LP nomination involved going to a lot of state conventions, which are obviously not really in my wheelhouse. And a pro convention tip for everybody: if you are at a convention and you have one of those tables and you're selling merch with one of the skirts, during the business meeting portions, you can totally take a nap under your table. And so that's a valuable pro tip for anybody on the
Definitely.
campaign trail. And so I would appear, and as the year progressed, it was different. I wore the boot a lot in the beginning of it, but yet I was spending a lot of time essentially getting people to agree with the premise. I mean, the proposal, the theory that we could get the 5%, that we could, or most likely to. that we could grow the party, that we could reach vast numbers of people. And so and it was just getting people to simply agree with that assessment, that with the statement that it was not inconceivable. And if they could say, okay, that is not inconceivable, that was the first step into getting them to fully support my campaign, or at least, and barring that, I just my follow-up question, well, if you may not support me, and for a number of reasons, there were some very good arguments why I would be the best nomination, but there was, of course, very serious concerns, and they're in real opposition. People thinking who were afraid, uh, who were not, and once again, people who are literalists really have a hard time getting past, the front of it, and understanding the nuance and subtleties involved, even though the subtleties are very outrageous and overwhelming. Um, so that was it. We were trying to explain people why they should. Um, be in on the joke. The in on the joke indeed was a very specific educational tool where we were trying to contextualize what it was that I was offering to the party, to those who were not doing the research, the due diligence, and simply looking, a little deeper than what they were looking at. And so that was a big part of it, and yes, it did become a hashtag, and it did become a centerpiece of one of my campaign talking points. Explaining it. We can be in on the joke, and it was essentially an explanation of how the Libertarian Party could not be considered a joke, because that was like a major, major concern. And oh, we don't want to be taken as a joke. And so I would, explain that, we could inoculate ourselves by getting in front of it, by owning the joke, by not becoming the joke, but by making it our joke, and that we are presenting the joke, and that we control the narrative of the joke. And saying, yeah, and the LP would have certainly had to put out a statement. Yes, we are a very serious party. Yes, we do this. Yes, we believe in that. However, the duopoly presidential election cycle has risen to the level of a joke, and therefore, with love and with spite and his running mate Spike, here's Vermin Supreme, kick my ass out on stage, and I go do the shit as crazy as it needed to be crazy at the various point, and yet dropping down to be a very serious and reasonable explainer of policy. And so the year found myself not only going to the uh, state conventions to try and convince people one on one, but taking part in the debates. And that was a different way of expressing myself and communicating, on a level. Now, if you go back and you look at any of my interviews or long form formats with the media, I mean, I've always been very happy to sort of drop the facade, break the fourth wall and explain what it was that I was hoping to achieve, or my, basic critique of the situation of society, or larger or smaller, depending on where I was going with it. But this was, just a different animal. This was, being serious vermin, almost another character, if you will. And and embracing the Libertarian Party platform as my own, because I believe if you're running for a party's nomination, it's only fair and right to represent what that party is. And for me, I believe that is completely defined in the statement of purpose and the and the thing itself. Sound like Joe Biden there, the thing. But anyway, um, so I was doing that, and I was trying, steering people to that as a lp.org/platform. If any of your viewers are not familiar with, read it. And in these debates, I found myself sitting with all these other libertarian presidential candidates, which is cool because, in America, anybody can run for president. And it's a self declarative statement. And that's a beautiful thing about it, because all you have to do is say the magic phrase, "Hi, my name is so and so, and I'm running for president." And it becomes an indisputable fact. It's this magical phrase that becomes reality. Nobody can disprove you. it becomes a fact. You don't have to go get votes. Nobody has to vote for you. You don't have to go raise no money. You don't have to interface with the FECC. But if you're serious enough, just about to uh, talk it up amongst a few friends, you're a candidate. Nobody can convince you or anybody else anything other. And the Libertarian Party, anybody can run for president or any thing under the Libertarian banner. All you have to do is say that magic phrase, "I'm so and so, and I'm seeking the Libertarian Party nomination." And there's no mechanisms to prevent anybody from doing that, unlike other parties that have specific barriers that would prevent you from doing that, signatures or you know. But so the Libertarian Party, it was a natural fit, so that there was that part to it. And yes, over the stretch of the campaign year, they did start instituting novelty headwear restrictions, aimed specifically at me, of course, and Dan Taxationist Theft Berman, who his gimmick was this big yellow Mad Hatter type of top hat looking thing that said taxation is theft on it. So, and I believe that, the state parties that put these into place were fully aware of the ironies of a party of self celebration and individuality and all these things was putting forth these prohibitions. I believe they were aware of it, and early on in the election year, when they first broached that with me, I'm like, oh, I don't think so. Oh no 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 no, f that. No no, that's no. You get that. You get me. You get the hat. But then after a few months, steeping in it and just sort of, okay, what do I care? I mean, it's obviously not really attached to my head. Um, and I felt that once again it was a way of communication of trying to signal. And once again, because the strategic goal was so specific, which is convincing the delegates, convincing a majority of the 1,000+ delegates that I was a very reasonable person. That because I'm trying to smash this stereotype. I am not my character. The boot is not attached to my head. Yeah, I am not always on. I am not always a disruptor, and I'm a very reasonable man. So, trying to convey these things, I felt it was very advantageous and reasonable, and not detrimental to my brand, if you will, to act in a capacity without the boot, because obviously I don't always wear the boot in casual events, and eventually I became comfortable debating without the boot, and found that I was still very well received. The year was very interesting because every debate is very different. The participants are different mix. The moderators are different. The rules are different. The audience is different. The venue is different, and any combination of these things just gives a very different feel. I mean, sometime we're like standing at a podium for 2 hours, very very stiff, very different feel. Sometimes you're behind this big long card table thing, and it was a little more casual, and you're literally rubbing elbows with your opponents. And other times, we're sitting in this like really nice sort of it looked like some sort of Star Trek universe thing, and that was a whole nother feel to it. And so that much I really enjoyed. um, what, of course, was interesting, normally in the olden days, if I was giving an interview, I mean, I knew pretty much that, I was talking, I was giving my opinions. I was telling you how I feel about things and how I'm interpret events and things of that nature. Whereas when you're running for president, seeking a nomination, I found that one finds themselves a lot of the time talking out your ass, trying to phrase things in a way that was acceptable, and what people would want to hear in the context of what a libertarian candidate might say, and saying it with some form of authority. And that was just a very different type of thing, because I've always maintained I'm not a pundit. That's not my function. I'm not trying to tell people how to think or what to think, and it's always been me just sharing what I think. So that was just very, very different. It was a very different year. And we were very lucky to um, towards the end, I guess the second, probably the last quarter, when the in on the joke part of the project became sort of a centerpiece of the sale, if you will. That Dan Smolt, the gentleman who ended up who's now doing some pretty amazing high power videos for Spike Cohen and Joe Jorgensen. He originally he saw my campaign. I met him at one of the debates, and prior to that debate, he was skeptical. He was another skeptic about the wisdom of putting a perceived crazy joke performance artist on the top of the ticket. But when he flipped and realized that that was a very legitimate and potentially advantageous avenue to take, um, we, we did uh, we did an interview at that, and then he's put that together along with a lot of other footage, and created the initial in on the joke of 10-minute mini documentary, which you can find on my YouTube channel. And YouTube's a little weird. You gotta go to the YouTube, and then you have to click all the videos because they only put like so many out front, and you have to go to so you got to go into the back room a little bit. But the 10-minute 50 odd second one, and it has a big yellow title card in on the joke, and I think that was the most concise explanation and contextualization of like this. It included a lot of the footage of me doing what I do, which has risen me, put me up on this level where people enjoy it so much. And but then explaining it, and once again, if you have to explain a joke, I mean, it's
Ruins the fun of
does it
it.
become a little less funny? And I won't say that, the year of campaign was not a bit of a drag here and there. There was debates I would go into where I was hoping that they'd be over before I was even before they even started. There'd be other ones where I'd say, okay, how long is this debate? Count the number of participants, do the quick math, figure out how many questions, rounds of questions it was actually going to go if each one was given 2 minutes, and that type of thing. Other times I was like fully on and rocking it hard. But I found, because I've been doing things so long, I was able to bring it even when I wasn't into it. Um, and I think there's very seldom, few times where you could tell that I was just not into it.
Not at all. Gotcha. There we go. So I actually wanted to talk a little bit about kind of your inspirations also. So you cited George Carlin, Paul Paulson, and Richard Pryor as some of your inspirations. I was curious if you could talk a little bit about the idea of like brutal honesty while still being humorous.
Well, I think it's a very effective way to get your point across. I mean, you look at Jonathan Swift, for example, and his modest proposal that the starving Irish eat their babies, which had a little echo callback during AOC's campaign with that one heckler who went in there and started yelling, "No, the new Green Deal doesn't go far enough. We must eat our babies." I mean, LaRouche or not, that's some funny stuff. You got to admit. But it's also, and I don't think people took her as seriously as they took Jonathan Swift. Um, but yeah, I think it's a spoonful of a baseball bat full of sugar, sort of helping the ideas go down. I have found that by utilizing the humorous approach, and I've always maintained that if I was just a regular guy presenting myself as a regular guy in regular clothes and standing on a street corner trying to look respectable and talking about normal things, it just would not be as effective. It would not be as interesting. And once again, it's part of the magic of the boot that it has that hook. And I can say that being humorous, and especially, compare it to the way that I have approached the other politicians or have approached authority figures, police, Secret Service, whatever. And if I was not being, I could never be anywhere near as aggressive and aggressively pushing forth my speech and critique if it was more serious and deadpan and real. because then it becomes frightening and scary a little bit. I mean, if I was going up to a candidate and just calling them on, why you're wrong, and uh, security would be on that in a heartbeat. Now, once again, they're on me pretty regularly anyway. But if you go, if you're aggro and you have anger instead of coming from this sort of place of letting your anger being tempered by love and turning it around into humor. Um, yeah, no, so, absolutely, you just can't, get to that place. You can't.
Right.
I mean, yes, you can talk about racism and people can sorta grok and agree, but if you listen to, Richard Pryor's, speaking about it, it becomes more intense, more visceral, more real, more funny, more pathos, um, all of those things.
Nice, yeah. And just kind of on a slightly different note, I was curious about. I know that you and Rob Potolo has made like a bunch of songs
But
together.
but Patillo.
Patillo, yes,
Patillo.
sorry. You
Patillo,
guys
yeah.
have made a bunch of different songs together. I was curious why the song Hot Dogs and Applesauce, seems to have stuck with you the longest throughout all these years.
Well, once again, I've always been one to, use the same material, forever. I mean, in 1987, that's when I, initially came up with a lot of, my stump speech, "Vermin Supreme, the friendly fascist, a tyrant you can trust. Let me run your life. I know what's best for you. All politicians are vermin, and I am the Vermin Supreme. That is one of the most qualified candidate in this race at this time. Friendly fascist, tyrant you can trust." And, that all came out in '87, and essentially every 4 years, I was able to drag it back up and use this my stump speech, and I mean, a lot of things become more fleshed out, and the mandatory toothbrushing law sort of grew and grew and grew, and free ponies and all those things. Um, but for me, I have no problem, banging out my greatest hits because people really like to hear them. Um, and I started working with Rob around, I guess it was around 2012, maybe 2011. I became aware of his series, Quiet Desperation, which was this long running web series based in Boston. It was sort of this improv type of um, sketch comedy thing, and he was utilizing a lot of actors and musicians and just a whole bunch painter, all sorts of creative types in the Boston scene. And in his mind, he would concoct a storyline essentially based, the narrative around his life and things happening and going on. And he would sort of get the cameras going and tell people sort of how the scene was supposed to go, and then let people do it. And so it's sort of this improv thing, and then he would edit it down. It was sort of these 16 to 20-minute episodes. Really great stuff.
Yeah.
And in season three, I was called into a friend called me up and said, "Hey, we're doing a shoot for this thing down in Boston, and you should come and do it." And it was at the Station House, which is this erstwhile artist space collective thing, and it was the theme was it was this cult. So there's this going to be there was this cult, and Rob's girlfriend had joined this cult, and he was trying to see his girlfriend, and he was going to join the cult, and this cult turned all crazy, and that's why I first met him. I met him on set while we were playing and improvising scenes for this episode, and then the next episode the cult went bad, and there was the cult leader I think killed everybody, and Rob happens upon it, and all his friends and people are dead, and so he's going to kill himself, and and that was as far as he had gotten in the series, and I guess on the plot. And I saw this, and he slices his wrist, and his blood squirted everywhere, and I felt a little concerned about that, and about his state of mental well-being, because the series sort of was reflecting his state of mental being. And so I called him up, and I made this offer. I made this pitch for the next episode. It's like, how about I rescue you? You come up to my ranch, and we go through all these things, and I try and treat you through crazy means. And he liked that idea, and so that's what we did. And yes, season three. Watch season three from the beginning, or watch the whole series, but binge watch it. We all got time now. And that's when I first started working with him in earnest, and we started doing a few of those episodes together. And I realized that he had such this knack, such this talent of improv and winging it, that he would be a perfect person on the streets, in demonstration land, in riot world, because I knew that he could use his amazing comedic powers to alter the reality, which is something that I've been dabbling in for many years now, also. And I brought him to Tampa for the Democratic National Convention in 2012, and and it worked out perfectly. Yes, I mean the demonstrators loved him, the police tolerated him, and we had a whole lot of fun. And he got a great episode out of it. And we just like played with the cops and like that. And hot dogs and applesauce. It's just been in his repertoire. I mean, they're all his songs. He does a lot of great stuff, a lot of serious music, but I think he's most loved for all his crazy, whimsical songs. He also used to do a character called Robbie Road Steamer here up in Boston, sort of this really obnoxious, over the top, overbearing, loudmouth Bruce Springsteen wannabe or I don't know how to describe it, but very misogynistic and uh, crude and homophobic and rude. And he did this bit and he used to do tour. He would tour. And people would come up and want to fight him because his character was so fucking obnoxious, and he would fuck with people from the stage and just be a total asshole because that was his character. Before he became this new character, before he just that character sort of was so hard to maintain that he wanted to try this other thing, and that's how the quiet desperation thing came into being. That's just an aside.
Right. Yeah.
And so yeah, and so during the 2016 election, we did a couple tours actually. We start, and I had never sort of done that level of sort of touring, doing the college gigs and the nightclub gigs, and doing real, comedy style things for audiences with stages. And that was a lot of fun because I'd go into different places and have fans, 30, 40, 50 fans show up that I never would have met, who were happy to pay money to see me. And we were breaking even and beating the split. And promoters were happy to bet a little bit of money on us, and they were making it back. So that was very cool. And I hope to get back into that if such things ever become a reality again.
Right. Yeah. Bring us all back to reality. I'm assuming also this is around the same time that I believe it was the episode where you guys were in the shack where also you started getting the animatronic tooth into it, where so the kind of the dental
Oh
care came up
yeah,
as well.
yes, yes, yes. I forgot. I'm sorry. I should have brought that out for you today. Maybe later on I can run. I don't know if it even works anymore. It's been a while. But yes, it's this little. You push the little button and it says "brush your teeth," and it's a little plastic tooth. And yeah, it just became a device and it had callbacks throughout a couple of the episodes, and like that. And it was just, yeah, it was just off the shelf. I found it off the shelf. And recommendation to all you people who, if you find something you really like and is really fun and really useful, and you should buy several of them. You should buy as many as you can when you have the opportunity, because they will not be in production long, and you're going to regret not having another one when it broke. So I bought about half a dozen of them. I think I'm down to my last two. On different tours, I took it with me. But back in the day, I think I allowed myself to carry more props. And nowadays, I sort of try and travel a little lighter. Although for the comedy tours, who knows? Uh, so we'll see. Brush your teeth.
Exactly.
Brush your teeth.
So naturally, you've had a quite a stronger connection than most politicians to the internet. I was curious how you found connecting to the newest crop of kind of potential voters through TikTok, because I see that you've been on that
Um,
recently.
yes. So far, so good. I've been a little lax, and I guess I better get back there before they just decide to cancel TikTok for Americans, which could happen. And once again, originally, the only thing I knew about TikTok was it was a Chinese spyware, and that was in the news early on. But then we became aware at some point that had become viral on the TikTok device, and that all of a sudden there was a million hits on my hashtag, and so I figured, well, darn, I guess I better uh, get on that thing. And so I did indeed join TikTok at the real Vermin Supreme on TikTok. That's how late I got on. That other people had grabbed various variations of my name, but that happens. Um, but I do reserve my right of publicity. All you people trying to think of using my name, and if you're now, I don't mind you kids at home, making a little bit of merch for your friends with my name on it. But if you're going to be making money off it, you got to let me, give me a little taste of that stuff. But anyway, back to TikTok, of course. Yeah, so I just started doing some TikTok videos, and people like them, and a lot of people comment on them, and very cool. Vermin seems to be the most overwhelming comment on that format. Very cool, Herman. There's a lot of in depth, but it is a fairly positive space, a fairly positive place. I don't. I haven't checked a lot of the comments recently, but doesn't seem to be a lot of negativity, like compared to YouTube or something, or Twitter, or even Facebook, where you're just going to get all sorts of cranky ass people with their bad attitudes, trying to piss all over your parade, aka trolling or whatever. Um, and I haven't experienced that on TikTok. I don't know why.
Nice.
And of course, I always like to think like, oh, I'm Vermin. I'm so lovable. Everybody loves me. But um, I actually have a very large amount of people who don't like me at all. And I guess the more bigger I get, the more there is. And I guess a lot are contrarians, and a lot are people that just sort of either don't like. I guess I just don't like what they perceive to be my actual politics. Maybe that seems to be the easiest thing for people to latch onto, to not to I'm going to not like that person because I don't like their take, or what have you. And I think it's just more pronounced maybe in my case. I think it's true of any subculture or any fandom or any celebrity fans. I mean, you will, you just don't think about it, but yeah, there's people all over the spectrum, and some horrible people who happen to like some good music, or something. I mean, the punk rock movement had their problem. Even the furries have their fashy problems, and I think mine is just more obvious because my initial viral moment, when I went viral, because it was not perceived to be uh, partisan. It wasn't a critique on any one candidate or any one party. It was more overall the system, that it was embraced by everybody across the political spectrum, from hard right to hard left. And I mean, so I have some fans in some real terrible places that I do not appreciate, and of course, I do my best to call them out when I can. But it's just a weird thing, because I'm a political figure in a sense, and I guess in a real sense, and more so all the time. I think that really highlights it, and so get a lot of more hate from the far right than the far left. Although, having run, being perceived as now as a libertarian, and all the baggage that might encompass in terms of stereotypes in some people's minds. Um, but on the other hand, I have always had a vast amount of political capital and political goodwill, and so I am happy to spend as much as I need to, um, in order to get to where I need to be, I guess. I don't know.
Makes sense then. You talked a little bit about your viral moment, and I thought I'd bring that back a little bit. During that time, you said that you got a lot of support with the Brony community. I'm curious if that's continued throughout the years, or has that waned off at all?
Well, I like to think so. I like to think so. Once again, I think a an important part of my audience is, and once again, it was one of my selling points to the LP. It was almost a talking point at various debates, how there are so many different subcultures in America. From bronies to furries to kinky sex fans to cryptocurrency enthusiasts to roller derby girls to Comic Con nerds to cosplayers to anime people to speed death metals and on and on and on. And the thing that I always point out is that they are all under the umbrella of nerd or geek culture. I mean, pretty much every subculture you can think of, magic, the games, or just all of them. They're all this. Ultimately, they're nerds or geeks, and they are, I believe, my natural fan base. And so, yes, and specifically as far as the bronies go, I believe they were very influential in pushing me over the top. In that, there's that moment. Where I did the thing, did the glitter bombing on Randall Terry and presented the ideas of the free ponies and mandatory toothbrushing laws and all that, and went viral. And so that was viral, which I think is just like lots and lots and lots and lots of people seeing you, and then it becoming a meme. And I believe a lot of the bronies started doing a lot of fan art and making me a pony and this. And so yeah, I believe that the bronies were definitely a very big part of sort of pushing me, in that moment from being a viral event to being an actual meme. And I still follow the horse news, and unfortunately they don't have a lot of the cons anymore because that was one of my goals. I always wanted to get paid to go to a brony con. But that I still believe that probably if when you think about okay that was 2012, that was 8 years ago, and so a lot of people who were, 12 then or 20 now, 14 now, they're 22 now, and on. And so I believe that, I am still thought of very fondly as sort of this, the nostalgia trend. And so it's like, oh yeah, that Vermin guy, and that's once again been another part of my experience is that because I ride the presidential election cycle every 4 years, it sort of replenishes the audience, and it seems because it all ages sort of dig it, but young people in particular really enjoy it on this whole other level. Kids are just anti-authoritarian in general. They are nonconformists, and so when they see some old geezer, pushing forth this wild stuff, it sort of I feel like I'm filling that sort of niche also. And so every 4 years, a whole new generation of kids discover me, and then and that go and then all of a sudden they're graduating high school and then they're going to college and then they're having kids. And what I've run into is people who have kids and their kids are discovering me on the internet independently of their parents. And they say, "Mom, Dad, look at this guy! It's Vermin Supreme." And um, so I think that is pretty cool to be, keeping it up long enough to become an intergenerational figure. And so there's just it's just been a total blessing that I have been able to develop and build this skill set and this following and just finding these things that had such resonance and such mean so much to so many different people and many different things. Different people describe different levels of import. Oh, Vermin, what you do, it's so important to democracy. Oh my goodness. You have to, you got to keep doing this. And other people like, that guy's a fucking idiot. Look, he's not moving on. I'm a stupid fucking jerk. Or what an asshole, Vermin. How you don't know what you're talking about. And everybody's right. Everybody's right. Their own subjective reality. And that's a cool thing about it. People interpret it different ways. Like I say, people literalists, they think it's real. Vermin, you want to give ponies to people? That's not very libertarian. You're right. It's not. No. I guess I'm just a minarchist, and we just need a little bit of government just to do that.
Makes sense. I see that we are coming up on to the end of our time. So I was curious, any comments you want to leave us with Joe Jurgensen and, of course, your man Spike Cohen?
Well, I think, out of the batch of candidates that we got going now, I'd say Joe Jorgensen is your best bet. Now, of course, I was speaking to a Norwegian linguist the other day, and apparently, it's pronounced Yo Jorgensen.
Really?
I
Hmm.
did not know that. Um, but yes, Joe is indeed a very worthy opponent on the campaign trail, and I believe the delegates spoke overwhelmingly in her favor. And I'd like to see her do, joke around a little bit more. Of course, I like to see her be a little looser. But I believe that she indeed has a vision that is based on the Libertarian Party platform. And of course, that was what I was promoting. Ultimately, she comes down with fully libertarian a take on things with the exception of that Black Lives Matter tweet. That was quite a shitstorm, wasn't it? But of course, I believe that she embodies the libertarian party and what it stands for, and so therefore, and of course, she's taking a lot of heat for it um, from people on the other side of the aisle, from people on the left who are jumping into attacking her for various positions, and the people from the right attacking him for her positions on other things. And I say better her than me, quite frankly. And as far as Spike goes, I think once again that's an amazing success story, and one of the successes that we can take pride in as a result of our campaign, as a result of our the Team Supremes run for the nomination. I mean, it was part of a culture shifting exercise. Also, it was trying to be able to reach out to beyond the libertarian inter party itself circle jerk. We were really trying to reach out and reach out hard to place and reach around to vast sections of the uh, world that wouldn't even give the libertarians a second look. I mean, there are so many these misconceptions and so many of them that I had to overcome to before I came to the party. I mean, it's not a right leaning monolith. No, it has a spectrum. It has its own left right dynamic, and just being able to point that out to the left. Uh, Left side of right out in the bigger world, and people would have to take that Vermin Supremes running as a libertarian. Maybe I got to take another look at the liberty. Maybe it's not what I think it is. It's almost like another hashtag, as in on the joke. It's not what you think it is. There are people of compassion. There are people with love. As an anarchist, I for years I was one of my critiques was my feeling that the libertarians were relying on charity will take care of it. Charity will take care of it. And it's like that stuck in my craw, quite frankly. I thought it was very top down and dismissive, because I cut my teeth on Kropotkin and believe that mutual aid is, the foundation of a reasonable society. People watching out for each other. But I was very precious about it. I didn't even want to, bring it up to my libertarian friends because I was afraid the phrase would be co-opted. A few years later, I was a centerpiece of my campaign. Mutual aid. It's one of the only ways that we'll be able to disengage ourselves from the government is if we build up the parallel structures that will allow ourselves to do so, that will negate the need for government, that stronger families, stronger communities, the tighter we run our lives, the less we need the government to try and run it for us. And all of these things, and the addition of, and my campaign was staff was of left and of right, united together, understanding that bottom unity, the anti-authoritarians from the right and the left need to unite and work against the state. And when we found Spike, and when our campaign strategist Richard Manzo recommended, just check out Spike, maybe he'd make a good VP. And then everybody on the team was like, yeah. And then I'm like, okay, I didn't know him, but I'm going to take my staffs if it's unanimous, and they yeah, okay. And he turned out to be a wonderful, wonderful addition to the campaign because he understood the importance of nonlinear messaging and what we were attempting to accomplish with that. He understood the potential of what we were putting on the table, as ultimately 1 out of 5 delegates did, or in more than that. So the fact that ended up being the choice of the delegates to the VP, because it's notable and it's noteworthy that the Libertarian Party chooses their presidential and vice presidential nominees separately. So the delegates chose Joe Jorgensen as the presidential candidate, and then they came together and decided that Spike should be her VP. And Spike took a lot of flack. He took a lot of heat for being my VP choice, and people were trying to call him a joke because he had his wacky policies of free cheesy bread with every demolition permit issued from the ATF and Badger, and because he was willing to have some fun with it, and then the Nipplegate, because had his nipples exposed on his Facebook page profile. Crap! Imagine if I got that nomination. What kind of crazy shit show that would be! All those people freaking out. But of course, that was the point. That was totally the point. And so the fact that Spike is truly, I think, one of the best communicators in explaining libertarian positions and libertarian fields, and that yes, he has ANCAP, and no, he does not want to rip your grandma's feeding tube out of her throat on day number one. You know, the fact that he's just a very reasonable man and an excellent communicator, and he is very funny when he needs to be. And so I just the fact that we were able to, well, help him, utilize the format of running for president to bump up his visibility and status within the party to the point where now he is the standard bearer, one heartbeat away. Look out, Joe! He's one heartbeat away. Um, so yeah, I think it's a pretty wild ticket, and I'm doing what I can do for him, and a fair amount of Team Supreme is transitioned over, and a bunch are definitely working on Spike's part of the campaign, because I guess ultimately it's a fusion ticket, and Joe's letting Spike run his show as he sees fit, and but they're meshing very nicely. They obviously have great interviews together. They both seem to work really great on the campaign trail, um, and all these things. So I think it's a great team. Better them than me. I'm a little bit sorry that I did that to Spike. I feel a little bit bad because I know it's a shit ton of work. Um, there was a point when when it was clear that I did not receive the nomination, and we were conferencing, and it's like he flirted with the idea. Well, I mean, maybe, I mean, should I just drop? I don't, Larry Sharp dropped out when his guy didn't get it, so he had an opportunity, and we were like, well, it's ultimately up to you, but ask your wife. And he asked his wife, and his wife said, yes, of course, you must. I mean, you can't let the people who supported you so hard down. And as a result, he is where he is. He's touring the country and spreading the words of liberty. I speak with him pretty regularly, and he's doing okay. He's handling it very well. I'm very concerned, of
Perfect.
course, about his health in the pandemic and all, and his in that, but he seems to be doing what he needs to do. He's rising to the occasion, and
Sounds great.
believe he's doing a good job. And, yeah.
Awesome.
And let's see. Oh, and I know we did not have a chance to plug my book,
Yes, it's
but
time
I'd
to
be
plug
remiss
everything.
if I did not point out iPony Blueprint for a New America. It's available at iPonybook.com or iPonythebook.com. It's also available everywhere else, but if you get it through those links, we get a little bit more money than the other people get their cut. And once again, of course, this is a book about the future, a future long after a Vermin Supreme presidency, after everybody as their pony, after zombie power fuels the nation, after secret dental police have set up checkpoints every couple hundred yards. It is a warning from the people of the future to you, the people of your present, their past, that Vermin Supreme is a madman and must be stopped. So there's that. You should check that out if you like pony erotica. It's a great book. It's got a great chapter on. And once again, of course, I'm the only candidate who has released their dental records. So I believe that is noteworthy. Vermin Supreme 2020.com is still active because Vermin Supreme is still my name and 2020 is the year. And you can find all of your Vermin Supreme merchandise needs for all your Vermin Supreme merchandise needs there also. Check out the documentary, Who is Vermin Supreme? It's a feature length documentary, and watch it on Vimeo because the guy who made it, the filmmaker Steve Onderick, the distributor went bankrupt, and as a result, he doesn't get the money on the other platforms. So, who is Vermin Supreme on Vimeo? Listen to the podcast. Let this podcast run your life. That's a podcast put together by Team Supreme that is out there. Look for me. Well, I told you on TikTok at the Real Vermin Supreme, on Twitter at Vermin Supreme, on Facebook, blue check mark Vermin Supreme for President. I believe Instagram, also that phrase, Vermin Supreme for President. What else? There's a couple other that I missed. And don't forget the Vermin Supreme Institute. We have not spoken about the Vermin Supreme Institute. Now, the team that we had developed and put together, all of these wonderful, creative, and driven people who want to see humor and satire push social change, that had been my campaign staff, wanted to stay together and want to continue working on this particular way of doing things, and have and found a way to do that. And we have formed the Vermin Supreme Institute. Once again, of course, it's the word institute after Vermin Supreme, and that makes it sound totally legitimate. And essentially, we're going to have various initiatives, um, and we are going to be launching at the end of July, I believe the 27th. We'll be launching the website. We are going to be an e- educational institution. We will be putting forth institutions. We will be recognizing various activist activities. We will be putting out educational takes on this and that, safety at demonstrations, things like that. And history, we're going to be covering history and redacted history. So there's a lot of things. It will be defined by what we become, by the various initiatives that are formed. So we're sort of crowdsourcing, different people who have different ideas that might want to fly it under our banner, and we'll help see it into reality if we possibly can, or with us doing as little as we can and grabbing the most credit that we can. I guess that's the way we roll, right? Um, but we, we're hoping to share a lot of resources. We're also folding in the Disrupt the Vote, which is also a resource share for candidates, anti or non-duopoly candidates, who are working, who are anti-authoritarian in nature, and that type of thing. So we've got a lot of different aspects of it, and we're starting to congeal them and get a feel for how they will work together. And so yeah, the Vermin Supreme Institute. It's a 501c4. It's like many. It means we can spend up to 50% of our resources on political things. It means we can accept anonymous donations of any amount. It means that we can be very opaque as we like to be. It's totally different, from a 501c because it's not tax exempt, but it does give us a reason to keep our money the money you give us in a place that is tax free. So it's potentially very sketchy, and apparently a lot of weird political groups use this designation. And so we found that it was and it's very different from my campaign uh, organization, which was different filing things and different limits. So we're going with this, and so wish us luck. And if you know anybody who has any interest or any interest in initiatives or any projects that they're hoping to accomplish, or that sort of thing, we are ideally will be a place where we can help that all come together.
Perfect. And all the links to all those things will be in the description, so you don't have to click anywhere. Just look down there. You'll get it all there.